Motorsport 411 presents
all the four and two-wheeled action.
Motorsport 411 with Sean Cardovillis.
Welcome to Motorsport 411, your home for all your four and two-wheel action in Africa. Now, it was a historic weekend in Rally New Zealand as Kalle Rovanpera became the youngest ever world champion. We'll find out all about Rovanpera and the Toyota Gazoo Racing team with the local coordinator Glen Edmunds. And we have an exclusive as we speak to the voice of rallying, Colin of DirtFish.
All the four and two-wheeled action. Motorsport 411.
Welcome to the show. So history was made in Rally New Zealand as Kalle Rovanpera and Jonna Houtanen won the event, with Rovanpera becoming the youngest ever world champion. Here's how the final moments of the event unfolded, courtesy of WRC Plus TV.
As he came towards the end of the stage, he edged ever closer to making history. Just a final kilometre to run, and the whole team waited patiently, but it was inevitable. Rovanpera won the rally and the power stage to jump across the finish line and into the history books. Kalle Rovanpera, the 2022 World Rally Champion and the youngest the sport has ever seen.
It's quite a big relief after so good season and finally we are here.
So that's WRC Plus TV. Now Glen Edmunds is the local coordinator for Toyota Gazoo Racing. Glen, thank you so much for speaking to us on Motorsport 411. What a performance this season has been by Kalle Rovanpera, the youngest ever world champion, beating the previous mark set by Colin McRae by 5 years. What a talent he is.
This year particularly, we've seen him rise to the occasion. Last year, he was a little bit tentative, but this year he's got so much confidence. I mean, obviously this car suits him really well. He's just an amazing talent coming from the Rovanpera family. We always knew he was going to be good, but nobody really understood just how good he was going to be. And he's going to have an amazing future in front of him, that's for sure.
From a personal point of view, with you working for Toyota, how do you feel Kalle winning the World Drivers' title?
I think it's great. I was very excited. I was glued to the screen. I watched as much as I could, and of course I was getting a lot of feedback from team members and management and things like that. It makes me feel very proud, the truth be told, especially when it came to Safari and we got the 1, 2, 3, 4. So much work went into that, and to be part of a team that is that professional and doing this well, and then to see this young man who, we sit and have coffee with, or we chat about a particular section that he wasn't sure about, whether it's something as simple as a high ridge, or Glenn, I saw a giraffe, asking question about wildlife. I mean, this kid wants to know everything. He's amazing. But, I also commend the other drivers. They also have been really great to work with this year, and I'm very proud to be part of that team. And I look forward to staying with them for as long as I can.
The main difference between him and the other drivers this season, his adaptability to different surfaces. He was phenomenal, just winning on all surfaces.
He has an amazing feel for the levels of grip. And that is one of the main things that makes a driver outstanding, is being able to feel the levels of grip that he's dealing with. And when it rains or it comes slippery, like we saw in New Zealand, or even in Kenya when it rained here, he was able to take 4 seconds, and even more in a section from other drivers. He has a talent that he understands where he can push. And yes, certainly there are times when he goes over the limit and things go wrong, but 90% of the time he really does understand the car, the levels of grip, the conditions, everything around him. And we're not going to see a talent like this come along every day, that's for sure.
Now, he had a slight blip the last few rallies. It was bound to happen, and that's what Jari Matti was saying. There was going to be that slight dip that was going to come, but he didn't seem to panic despite Oit suddenly racing his game.
No, he didn't panic. I was in contact with Jari Matti just a couple of days ago, and some of the other team management, and we were talking about, Jari Matti was never he never won the world championship. He was an amazing talent and a great driver, but he never won the world championship. But you got to remember, this is a team sport, and Jari Matti leading the team of real professionals, and everybody in that team knows his job. They don't have to be told. They get on and they do it, and there is a real sense that they're the best. And it's pretty amazing to be in that environment, because what it does, it just raises everybody's game 10-15%, and that takes leadership, and the leadership they've got, whether it's with Kai, Jarmo and Jari Matti and all the other engineers and people like that, they're all focused on the same thing, and that's winning. And I expect that Toyota as well is also this year they'll be very happy with the results that they've got. This is a huge year for Toyota.
Yeah, and of course we can't forget to mention his navigator as well. How key has the navigator been?
The navigator's been very key. He has a lot of experience, and there is a connection between the two of them. It's like at times they don't even have to talk. They understand each other, and the navigator works very hard again with the team, and everybody has a job to do, including the navigator. For sure, the navigator will be telling him when to push, when to back off, and things like that. But some drivers don't listen to the navigators very well. But Kalle really respects his navigator, and you can see that just in the interaction when they're watching the videos of a recce, for example. They're talking and discussing when to push, when to push the boost button and things like that. They have this sense almost of one, actually.
Yeah, of course, his navigator is Jonna Houtanen. For Toyota, it's looking very positive in terms of the manufacturer's title. That will be the priority for them now.
Yeah, they'll be focused on the manufacturer's title. There's going to be a lot of work going on behind the scenes, because if they can get the manufacturer's title this year, along with everything else, that's going to be a huge, huge bonus for Toyota. They can market that and sell cars with that, and the whole of motorsport is a marketing exercise. And really, at the end of the day, if we can see Toyota win this championship, that's fantastic. The question is what's it going to do to the Hyundais and the Fords? Are they going to step up and invest more money? Ford, we already know Ford are always struggling for budget. And they've got to take paid drivers and things like that just to sustain themselves. But the trouble is when one manufacturer, like even Mercedes in Formula One, is so dominant, it can tend to put off other drivers and other manufacturers and joining the team, joining the World Rally Championship or Formula One, whatever it is, and that's always a worry. And I think Safari was a big wake-up for a lot of these other teams, because they could see just the step forward that Toyota had made, and it meant that they had to work twice as hard, put in as much money as Toyota to get to that place. But I'm hoping that next year Hyundai will start to develop the car earlier and release the budget earlier, because really, the last thing we want to see a fight. As a fan of rallying Formula One, we want to see different drivers and different manufacturers fighting for that championship. And if it becomes one way, then everybody loses.
And finally, Glenn, it's an amazing relationship between you and Toyota. I guess you're laying the groundwork for 2023?
Well, we just finished putting all the books, putting the books together and finishing the accounts for last year. So yeah, we'll start looking at the new season. We'll start looking at putting Safari together. Yes, I've been very lucky. Going from Mitsubishi as a local coordinator and getting the option to join Toyota when I did, it was funny actually. When I signed for Toyota. I think I mentioned this to you a week later. Hyundai contacted me and they wanted me to sign with them, but I'd already committed. You see, when it comes to motorsport, if you have a good relationship with whether it's the mechanics or the organ or the team bosses, when they move on, they want to take their team with you. So when Mitsubishi pulled out and we lost the Safari, I personally, I couldn't do anything. I had nothing to really do. But then when Safari came back online and Tommy Mäkinen and Lassie Lampe were running Toyota back in the early days of the development of the Toyota team, they called me and said, would you mind joining us again? And of course, because there were so many of the old Mitsubishi boys there, it was an easy decision to make. But of course, there was some spillover too, because some of the old Mitsubishi boys joined Hyundai. And so once they got there, they realized they were coming for Safari, they also reached out. Unfortunately, I'd already signed with Toyota. I was lucky. It was a good team. I mean, and we were doing really well. And now next year we'll be in our year 3 working together. And now we've built up trust. They know what I can do. They know what's expected of Kenya. And really my job is to make their life easy here and ensure that we're able to do the Safari with as little drama as possible, whether that's employing somebody just to sweep up and clean up, or arranging helicopters and hotels and things like that. The brushstroke for someone like me is very broad. It can be even arranging for somebody to be airlifted to a hospital or something like that. Or for the drivers coming in saying, they'd like, can you organize us to go and see the elephants or whatever it is. So having somebody like myself who has the experience across the board for so many years with Mitsubishi just makes their life easier. And that's what it's about. If Safari can keep the costs down and make it easy as possible for people to come and to do this event, the Safari will stay.
Glen Edmunds, as always, thank you so much for speaking to us on Motorsport 411.
Thanks a lot, and Sean, welcome back. I'm glad to see that you're cycling again and everything's moving forward for you. Great program. I'll be listening to it. I believe you've got some people from DirtFish coming. I did get to spend some time with the DirtFish guy over the Safari and sat in the car and we spoke a little bit about it. About how Safari is, and actually I got a chance to tell him just how grateful we as Kenyans are to see Safari come back and what it means for the average Joe Blow who's in Naivasha watching the Safari. I think a lot of the time people don't realize just how important this event is to the average man, and hats off to Uhuru. He fulfilled one of his promises, brought the Safari back, and gave us all a huge boost.
That's the local coordinator for Toyota Gazoo Racing, Glen Edmunds. We'll be back.
All the 4- and 2-wheeled action.
Motorsport 411.
So welcome back to the show. As we've been mentioning, history was made in Rally New Zealand as Kalle Rovanpera became the youngest ever world champion. Now, after the event, Colin Clark and DirtFish TV spoke to Rovanpera.
Of course, it's a big relief when you finally get the job done. That's the biggest thing what you feel at the moment.
At what point in your life did you think, yes, I want to be World Rally Champion? How old were you? Can you remember that moment?
I cannot remember it, but for sure when we started to be professionals, that's the only goal what you can have. For me, I never think about the age, but still it's nice. And previously, if it was Colin and now us, I think that's also quite special. So it's nice for me.
And the future, you've said to us maybe you might do 4 or 5 years. What is the future for Kalle Rovanpera?
I don't know yet. I don't need to think about it now.
Colin, thank you so much for speaking to us on Motorsport 411. What a performance by Kalle over the weekend. In the grand scheme of things, you've been in motorsport for many, many years. How brilliant is this guy?
Well, first of all, thank you very, very much for inviting me on your wonderful show. Listen, what we saw at the weekend with Kalle Rovanpera, in terms of rallying and the world of rallying, it was an incredible achievement. But that really doesn't, I don't think, tell the whole story. You know, he is younger than Max Verstappen was when Verstappen won his first Formula One title. It's an unbelievable achievement. 22 years and 1 day old when he claimed the World Rally Championship. You know, not so many years ago, the kind of received wisdom said, winning rallying, you have to have experience. And to get that experience, you have to have been rallying for 4, 5, 6 years. Rovanpera has come along and shown that with, you know, an absolute abundance of natural talent, ability, the right sort of mindset, you can win. And he is a very, very special talent indeed, not just in terms of rallying, but in terms, I think, of world motorsport.
Now, he's part of this long line of drivers who comes from a rallying family. We know his father, Harry, very well. He finished second overall in the Safari Rally back in 2002. These young drivers who come through this rallying, this family of rallying history, how important is it from the moment they get behind the wheel of a car at a very tender age?
Yeah, you know what? It is important. As I mentioned, rallying is all about experience. And you know, anyone who knows rallying will know that it's a difficult sport to get into, to break through to the very highest level. And it's difficult for a number of reasons, and the main reason being cost. It's enormously expensive. So when you've got a name like Rovanpera, or like young Solberg, or young Schwartz, who's making a bit of a name for himself, all with dads, families who have been in the sport for a long time, what that does is it opens doors for you. It gives you opportunity. So opportunity then gives you the possibility of getting through. It gives you seat time. It gives you, it puts you in front of the right people. And you know, Rovanpera, 22 years old. But don't forget, he first drove a rally car when he was 8 years old. 8 years old. And you can look it up on YouTube. He was driving, I think, a Toyota Starlet. So, yeah, it is, you know, it is unfortunate because you want rallying to be open to everyone. And in some ways it is. In every way, I suppose it is. But the opportunity quite often comes along if you've got a family name. Young Max McRae right now is just beginning to forge a career for himself. The McRae name, maybe the most famous name in rallying, and Max is the nephew of the legend Colin McRae. So, yeah, you know, if you've got a family name, it helps. But you need that talent, that ability, that application that makes any champion in any sport. So the name alone won't get you to the very top, but the name certainly gives you opportunities.
Now, there is that fine line between one-hit wonder and, of course, a new era in motorsport. He's just 22 years, winning the title at 22 years and 1 day. Colin McRae, who was the youngest driver then in 1995, was 27 years old when he won that world title. What do you see as the future, and how important is Toyota for Kalle Rovanpera?
Well, do you know what? A lot of things aligned for Kalle Rovanpera. If Kalle Rovanpera had been born 10 or 12 years ago, the opportunity might not have been there because there might not have been a manufacturer seat available for him. So, you know, if you like, all of the stars have aligned for Rovanpera, but it wouldn't have happened without this unbelievable natural ability he's got. And it's an achievement that, to be totally honest with you, and it's you know, how low can it come? How low can that age bar come in rallying? I don't think much lower than Rovanpera set it. I honestly don't think that we will see, certainly not in even the mid-future. It'll be many, many, many years, if ever, until someone comes along and wins the world title at a younger age. And that, again, just gives us, I think, a sense of just how absolutely momentous the achievement is for Rovanpera. To win it at such a young age, for everything to come together as it has done for Rovanpera. It's just incredible. It's quite incredible. And I really don't see, you know, McRae was considered young, as you said, nearly 28 years old. He was considered incredibly young to be a world champion. At 22 years old, will we ever see a 21-year-old world rally champion? I think it's unlikely. I genuinely think that what Rovanpera has done may never be bettered.
Now, Colin, I don't know what's happening. You're seeing a trend in motorsport, not just in Formula One. You're looking at MotoGP. Look how Marc Marquez is struggling to come back after his injury woes. You go to the world of cycling. Look at the Tour de France. These young kids, early 20s, doing so well in the world of cycling. What's happening that the athletes and the drivers in general seem to be younger and younger and achieving so much?
Yeah, well, don't forget, we bucked that trend in rallying. Don't forget we had possibly the greatest driver of all time, Sebastian Loeb, returning to the sport in Monte Carlo this year at 48 years old. 48 years old, and he won Monte Carlo rally. So he's kind of bucking that trend, but I do agree with you. The youngsters are very much beginning to... in some sports, in some forms of motorsport, circuit racing, kids can sit on simulators, and they can sit on simulators for hour after hour after hour. They can learn the lines, they can learn the braking points, they know where to apply the throttle. And theoretically, and it seems in practice, you can get in a car and you can replicate that. You can almost completely replicate that in a sports car going around the circuit. Thankfully, that's not the case in rallying. You can't do that. There are some kids who grow up, who get their early experience in rallying on simulators, but there's nothing in the world of rallying that replaces real seat time in a proper car. But I think the trend that you've identified, that you're talking about, it has come about because of technology. Because of technology, the abundance of technology, the quality of the technology that's available these days. You can build a Formula One sim in your living room that gives you an almost lifelike experience, and it's incredible. You can't do the same in rallying, and long may that last as far as I'm concerned.
All right, now just looking at your ratings for Rally New Zealand, let's start off with Toyota.
Oh, goodness. These get me into such trouble. They get me into such trouble. Oh, my word. Right, go on.
All right, Kalle was 10 out of 10, but for Toyota, it really was a mixed event.
Listen, a lot of people said to me, because I've not given Kalle a 10 out of 10 before, even though he's won rallies in the past. 10 is the perfect score, and the perfect score has to represent the perfect rally. If I give him 10 for a rally where he's only beaten his teammate Elfyn Evans, for example, as he did on a couple of rallies ago, if I give him a 10 for that, where do I go when he has this type of rally, which is monumental, which is historic? So that's why Rovanpera gets a 10 here. He's changing the way that I give my scores in my driver ratings, because, a win for Kalle Rovanpera isn't an automatic 10. But this one had to be. It absolutely had to be. But as you say, Toyota, they had a little bit of a strange event, a really strange event in Acropolis a few weeks ago, where all three of their drivers struggled really, really badly. And we saw Hyundai claiming a 1-2-3 on that event. But Toyota right now are the strongest team. They've got a fantastic leader in Jari-Matti Latvala. They've got a wonderful facility based in Finland. They've got a great budget, and they've got three drivers. 5 drivers, you might argue, who are all right up there contributing to the development of their car. So, Toyota are doing well. Elfyn Evans struggling a little bit. But when you can bring every now and again, an 8 times world champion, Sebastian Ogier, back into the team to give you a little boost, you know that you're doing the right things, aren't you?
Now, for Hyundai, it really was, it's been a strange couple of events. We talk about Greece, first of all, and the team orders between Thierry Neuville and Oyt Tanak. I want your thoughts, first of all, on that.
Yeah, listen, that was bizarre. That was, in my view, absolutely bizarre. If you want to win a title, if you've got any chance of winning a title, then you take every opportunity that you can. And particularly in rallying, where it's so unpredictable, you just don't know what's going to happen. You take the points where they're on offer, if mathematically you can still win a title. So, there was more reason behind it. Yes, they had this historic 1-2-3 that they were set up for on Sunday morning. But they could still have achieved that by switching Tanak and Neuville around, and they elected not to. For me, it suggests there's something else going on within that team, and I think I might know what's going on, but we'll find out, I think, in the coming weeks or months. what's going on in that team. It was the strangest decision. And I've got no idea why they did it. Well, I do. I think I do have an idea, but you know, on the face of it, it was bizarre, and I think that's about as much as we can say about it.
And then, of course, in New Zealand, the issues with the hybrid boost and the penalties, that really cost them.
Oh, it did cost them, you know, and you can understand Tanak's frustrations. Tanak is putting everything on the line. If we go back, 3 rallies? I think it was 3 rallies to Finland. One of the greatest drives I have ever seen from any driver, Tanak to win Rally Finland. Rally Finland, you cannot win unless you put everything on the line. You drive on the door handles. You're flying the whole time. The risk reward is massive, that calculation, because if you go off in Finland, you're in all sorts of trouble. And Tanak, for every kilometre of every stage, 100% committed. He knew the car wasn't working. He knew the car was unpredictable, but he was prepared to deal with that unpredictability in order to give himself a chance of winning the rally. Fantastic. Did all that. He wins. You know, so that's the level that he's operating at right now. And what he can't deal with, or what he shouldn't have to deal with, is a penalty situation that he encountered in New Zealand the other week. You know, very frustrating. Leading the rally on Friday night, he wakes up Saturday morning expecting to still lead the rally, and he's no longer leading the rally because he's been penalised for something that was beyond his control and was human error. But you know, at the end of the day, Michel Monse, the team boss, he'll tell you, we all make mistakes, and that is true. That is absolutely true. But in a professional motorsport team, those kind of mistakes, you know, they're rare and they are rarely tolerated. It is one of those. It was a very not very well organized, but it was a very well communicated. Someone in Hyundai missed, and the whole team, you know, unfortunately got time penalties. And that you know what, you might say it was only, I think it was 15 seconds or something for Tanak, but you know, it sucked the life out of the poor lads. You know, he is putting everything on the line to lead this rally, potentially win the rally, and then he's 15 seconds back down the road because of an administrative error by someone in the team. You can see how that could deflate him, and I'm certain it did deflate him. And it, you know, in terms of his motivation then to push on, well, it was just that little bit harder.
Colin, let me ask you a question. Will Tanak still be at Hyundai in 2023?
He refuses to answer that question. He refuses to answer it. You know, I asked him directly a couple of times now. I asked him directly in Greece, will you be in a Hyundai next year? And he said, well, you'll have to wait to see in Monte Carlo. I asked him a similar question in New Zealand where I said, look, you know, do you think Hyundai, with the homologation rules, you know, these cars, you know, brand new cars, and when you develop a new car, you present a new car to the governing body, that is the car that you have to drive. You can't, you know, think, oh, blooming heck, we got this wrong, we'll develop a whole new car. There are only certain things you can change on that car. So, you know, I said to Tanak, with the limitations on how much they can change to this car, do you think it's possible that Hyundai can develop the car into a championship-winning car by Monte Carlo? And his response to that was, I have to get to Monte Carlo first. So he's been non-committal. He's been absolutely non-committal. There's a palpably bad atmosphere in that team. Tanak, I think, feels he's not being supported by the team. And, you know, you'd have to say the evidence in Greece suggested that. So I don't know. I don't know whether Tanak will be in the Hyundai or not. We'll have to wait and see. But it's certainly somewhere around 50-50, and it might even be less than 50-50 of Tanak staying at Hyundai. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
Now, for Ford, it's always going to be difficult. They don't have the budget of the other two teams. But for New Zealand, that was a really, really long weekend for them.
Oh, and they've had too many of them, haven't they? They've had too many long weekends. Don't forget the problems that they had in Acropolis with drivers crashing. We go back to Ypres and there were crashes. Finland, well, I can't remember. It was Finland. Finland was, yeah, there were 1 or 2 crashes there as well. Well, Craig Breen in particular. No, it's been a tough time because, you know, they are funded very differently from the other two manufacturer entries. You know, Toyotas and Hyundais are proper full manufacturer entries and funded accordingly. The M Sport deal is very different from that, and they run on a fraction of the budget. So they have to make things work. And a big part of that is getting drivers who can bring the car home in one piece, and hopefully bring the car home in one piece with podiums and ultimately wins. They had that magnificent win at the start of the year, as I mentioned, with Sebastian Loeb. And the only person who's looked capable of winning in the car since then is Loeb, and he's made his comebacks. It's a very frustrating time for M Sport right now. Breen, 4 crashes out of 5 rallies. Adrian Fourmeau seems to be a little bit unreliable right now. He's got pace, that's for sure, but he's got no consistency. He's also crashing a lot. Greensmith is a bit better. Greensmith is the best of the 3, but he had a big crash at the weekend in New Zealand as well. So it's a very, very tough time, and they need a solution. They need something to come along, someone perhaps to come along and change things there. And that may be more rallies for Sebastian Loeb. It may be another driver coming along and perhaps taking on the number one driver responsibilities, because everyone loves an underdog, and M Sport are very much the underdog, and they're one of the most popular teams in the service park. So fingers crossed they get things sorted sooner rather than later, and we see some joy in that camp rather than the abject misery that we've seen sadly for the last few rallies.
Now, it'd be interesting to have your thoughts on the podium in New Zealand, a very, very rare sight of having 3 world champions on the podium.
Very rare. 2007 or 2008 was the last time we saw that. Yeah, very, very rare indeed, and nice to see. And I guess the only one who could have mixed it up on that podium and still been a world champion was Loeb. We occasionally will now have 4 world champions on, potentially, maybe when we get to Monte Carlo, we'll have 4 world champions on the start list with Loeb, Ogier, Tanak, and now Rovanpera. But yeah, a very rare sight indeed, and really good to see. And it was good to see, Sebastian Ogier is an absolute gentleman, and he's a cracking ambassador for our sport. And it was great to see him so relaxed, and great to see him, if you like, handing over the mantle to young Kalle Rovanpera. It was very much a change, a generational thing, wasn't it? The old master handing over to the aspiring young apprentice. Well, you can't really call Rovanpera an apprentice anymore. But it was great to see. It was great to see, and he is an absolute gentleman, Sebastian Ogier, one of my very favourite drivers. And he is great for the sport. And we're seeing a different Ogier whenever we see him out now. He is very relaxed. He's enjoying his driving, still driving at the most extraordinarily high level, but just enjoying himself, doing what he has to do for the team.
Now, unfortunately, we didn't get to see you in Kenya, but you were here briefly for the Safari Rally, the WRC Safari Rally. Your thoughts on the event?
Oh, listen, I am just absolutely gutted that after two safaris, I've only been able to attend, if you like, the reconnaissance for one of them. Somewhere that I've got a great deal of affection for, and I'm desperate to get out and see the rally. So I'll be back next year. That's absolutely for sure. But what Safari gives us is something very, very different. Rallying is all about diversity, and this is what makes our sport special. We go all around the world, and we go to wonderful places like New Zealand, and we go to South America, we go to Africa with the Safari Rally, and each of those rallies gives us that diversity that we need to keep rallying unique. It's not just a bit of tarmac going around the circuit in the centre of a city, which a lot of other motorsports, top-level motorsports are. And Africa, Kenya in particular, the Safari Rally, just visually, it always has been, but it certainly has been the last couple of years, just stunning, absolutely stunning visually. And in terms of the challenge, well, an incredible challenge. We saw it last year and we saw it this year. Just an incredible challenge. You get a little bit of rain and those stages become, again, a proper strategic event as opposed to just a flat-out sprint. Sadly, a number of rallies these days have just become a flat-out sprint. The element of strategy has disappeared. Well, it hasn't in Africa, particularly when it rains. I love it. And on top of that, probably the most important thing about the Safari Rally are the people. The people that turn out in their hundreds of thousands, and the enthusiasm, the passion for motorsport out there is just incredible. And even though I wasn't there for the event, I could very, very much feel it in the build-up to the event. Very, very, very special place. And we were away for far too long, and hopefully we're going to be back now for a very long time.
The big talking point with the Safari Rally is fesh. How much is too much, and what's your advice for the organisers, particularly the clerk of the course and his team?
Yeah, listen, I wouldn't dare give them any advice because they know better than anyone their own route and their own rally. But my view is that these things are there to be dealt with. If every single car is getting stuck in the fesh, then there's an issue. But that rarely happens. And again, it's what I'm talking about. It's about strategy. It's about how you deal with these issues that are presented to you. They obviously, there was one stage, I can't remember which stage it was, where actually Rovanpera got stuck last year. And they cut a fair chunk of that stage out to avoid the fesh. Probably the right thing. Kidong stage, that's the one, yeah. Beautiful stage. Oh my goodness me! I remember driving that on the recce, and there's a very large area in the middle of that stage, an open plain, and there were buffalo, there were giraffes, there were zebras, there were leopards up in the trees. Oh my goodness, it was incredible. But yeah, fesh is a part of the event. It's part and parcel of the challenge that the unique stages of Kenya offer. So, if you can avoid, when you're choosing your route, if you can avoid obvious areas that are prone to really deep and really punishing fesh, fair enough. But a little bit of fesh, it's part of the challenge of rallying in Kenya, and the drivers just have to deal with it, and they have to work out a way of dealing with it. And for me, bring it on. It's great, makes it interesting.
Just tell us about your history with Africa.
Well, you know what? I don't have a huge amount of history, other than that. When I was younger, I was a bit of a bookworm. I loved reading books and novels in particular, and and I got into Wilbur Smith when I was younger. And by the time I was 15 or 16, I'd read just about every single Wilbur Smith book. And anyone who knows anything about Wilbur Smith novels knows that he was a South African with a passion for Africa. And he paints a glorious picture of Africa. And Wilbur Smith ignited my passion for your part of the world. And I went there when I was 19. I came to Kenya when I was 19 and had a month or so and absolutely loved it. But it took me 30 years to get back, sadly. But yeah, I just there's just a vitality, and there's a beautiful energy about Africa, about the African people, about the Kenyan people, and I just find it really quite humbling to go there and to see these people who clearly, in the majority, don't have an awful lot of material goods in their lives, but they just have a lot of joy in their lives, and I think we can learn in the West an awful lot from that.
Colin, I know we could talk, literally forever about your motorsports background. Can you just tell us briefly about your motorsports background?
Well, look, I'm not a driver. I never have been. I've never professed to be. I'm very fortunate in that I've seen motorsport from various angles. Growing up, I was just a fan of sports. Our family were quite a sporting family, and we played a lot of sport when we were younger, and we watched a lot of sport on the telly. And I watched Formula One until I fell asleep, which was quite regularly watching Formula One. And I watched a little bit of rallying, but I wasn't really into rallying. But when I graduated university, I started to work for the tobacco company, and we sponsored the Subaru World Rally team, and I got involved in that. And that really ignited my passion for rallying. Working for, at the time it was Rothmans, it then became BAT and the 555 brand. So that's how I got involved. And unfortunately, the job that I had, which was looking after sponsorship and promotions, with the changing tobacco laws around promotions, that all disappeared. And I took redundancy from that job, but really missed the rallying. So was fortunate to get back involved in rally radio, and it just went from there, to be honest. I found something that I loved doing, I had an absolute passion for, turned out I was half decent at. So that was 20 odd years ago, and I've never looked back. I've managed to make a living talking about and commentating on mainly rallying since then. So I understand exactly how fortunate I am to have been able to do that. But it's a kind of dream job for me, and I love every second of it. And I've never taken for granted how fortunate I am to be in the position I am in. And I think particularly with rally fans, that's really important. At heart, I am a rally fan. I'm still a rally fan. And I think that kind of helps me in the job I do, because I ask the kind of questions that rally fans ask. Because I'm not technically 100% on top of things. In terms of strategy, I'm not 100% on top of it. So, I ask the kind of questions. I've got a very inquisitive mind. I ask the questions I kind of hope rally fans want the answer to, and it seems to have worked. It's worked for 20 years, and hopefully it'll last and work for a few more.
All right, you are with DirtFish. Can you tell us about the partnership between DirtFish and the WRC and, your overall involvement?
Yeah, DirtFish is a fantastic project. Your owner is a gentleman called Steve Rimmer, and Steve's a businessman and quite a successful businessman. And he has an absolute passion for rallying, and he started a rally school in Seattle, or just outside Seattle, in the United States, about 10 or 12 years ago, and that's very successful. I'd have to say, from rally schools that I've seen around the world, and I would be a little biased, and maybe I would say this, but it's by far and away the best rally school I've seen anywhere in the world. But that's Steve. Steve sets his standards very high and delivers to a very, very high level. And a few years ago, he got together with David Evans, and they decided that perhaps there was a job to be done in terms of media and selling rallying in a different sort of way, in a more independent way with a more honest voice. And Steve got David Evans involved, and David Evans came from Motorsport. He was at the time, and probably still is, I think, the world's best rally journalist. And then they asked me to come on board, and it was an absolute dream for me because it gave me the opportunity to speak freely about things I'm passionate about and to continue really being an evangelist for the World Rally Championship. So yeah, we do rallying, and it's not just the World Rally Championship. We cover the ARA in North America, the championship there. We cover really any rally that's interesting around the world. We cover Rally Cross and a few other events as well. We cover Dakar and a bit of Extreme E. So it's really down to Steve Rimmer, our boss. He's the man with the driving passion at the top, and his motivation is to deliver for rally fans something that's honest and entertaining and informative, and I think he's managed to achieve that in the relatively short period that DirtFish.com has been going.
Now, what is it about motorsport that you love?
Do you know what? Okay, so when I was involved with the tobacco company, I did a little bit of Formula One, and I didn't love it. So I don't think it's motorsport I love as such. Formula One, I just found too insular. The teams were very, very insular. The team that I was working with wouldn't ever talk to any of the other teams. If we were in a restaurant in our team gear and another team walked in, we would leave. You would never find two teams eating in the same restaurant in Formula One. This was 20 years ago. But rallying is very different. Rallying is a sport for the people. The drivers are just everyday honest guys, and they almost to the man and woman. That's how they remain. They're very approachable. The sport's approachable. It's very real, isn't it? These cars that they're driving. In the majority, there are road-going versions. You can go out and buy, or certainly back in the day, you could buy a Subaru WRX. You could buy an Evo Mitsubishi. You could buy a GTI Peugeot. You can identify, the man in the street can identify with the rally driver in a way that they can't with other forms of motorsport. And that's what I love about it. We go out, it's the nearest thing to pure motorsport, in my opinion. You were driving proper roads, proper tracks with real hazards, and the skill level involved in doing that is extreme. And we go to these incredible places, and to hear the cars, to see the cars, to smell the cars, and then to get a sense of just what they're achieving. We go to Africa, and you're crossing these incredible plains and dealing with things like Fesh. You go to Greece, and you're up in the mountains, and there are massive drops off the side of the mountains, and they're still going at 100%. It's just, for me, it's just almost beyond belief what they do in these cars, and that makes it attractive, that makes it appealing, and that continues to make the whole sport of rallying, for me, incredibly exciting. And I'm yet to get bored by rallying. So I don't think it's possible. I genuinely don't think it's possible. I've never been to what I would call a boring rally. So and I'm honest enough to say if there is one, and as far as I can tell so far, I've never been to one. So rallying does a lot of things. It ticks a lot of boxes, certainly for me. And it is that kind of diversity that keeps it it keeps it fresh, doesn't it? And I love it. And I always loved it, or certainly for the last 20, 30 years. And I can't ever see that situation changing.
Just finally, Colin, a lot of people listening to this show right now. What's your message for the rally enthusiast here in Eastern Central Africa and Africa at large?
Well, listen, there's a wonderful rallying community within Africa. Right across from Tanzania, Kenya, all the way down to South Africa. There's an incredible rallying community, a wonderful spirit. And it's so accessible, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a wonderful thing. I met a young guy called Max Smart the other day from South Africa who's won through to the final of the FIA Rally Star. It always helps to have a hero, doesn't it? To produce a local talent. And to be fair, there's some fantastic local talent. We saw that in Kenya this year. We saw it in Kenya last year. But I think just keep supporting rallying, keep going out and supporting the drivers and the teams. Get involved if you can. Rallying's a sport that relies on volunteers almost more than any other motorsport. So get yourself down to your local car club, get involved, volunteer to marshal. If your friends can get together to run a car, that's great. The teams that support these cars tend to be big and enthusiastic. So just keep doing what you're doing, supporting your local rally clubs, and we'll look forward to seeing you all back out for Rally Kenya next year.
Colin Clark of DirtFish, the voice of rallying. Thank you so much for speaking to us on Motorsport 411. It is an absolute pleasure to speak to you.
Well, thank you very much indeed for having me on your wonderful show. It's been a joy. Thank you.
Motorsports 411 with Sean Cardovillis.
So that's it for the show this week. Once again, a very special thanks to Glen Edmunds, the local coordinator for Toyota Gazoo Racing, and the voice of rallying, Colin Clark of DirtFish. Our thanks as always to Big City Studio. I'm Sean Cardovillis. See you next week.